like any other cliche word you can think of: sick, shred, gnar bike, cross-country bike, trail bike, all mountain bike, aggressive cross-country bike, aggressive trail bike, enduro bike, shred duro bike, downhill bike, heli shuttle bike, cable shuttle bike, chairlift bike, bike park bike. Downcountry is the same as people calling riding a road bike on gravel road. It's the worst. For 2019, Giant has completely overhauled the Trance. The new Trance has 29-inch hoops and forward-thinking geometry, and with 115 millimeters of travel, it puts it right into the trail category. With those 115 millimeters of travel and a 66.5 degree head tube angle, it's relatively slack for a trail bike. The seat tube is 74.5 degrees and there's 435 millimeter chain stays. The Trance 2.9 is designed around a 44 mil offset fork. Our medium test bike has a reach of 445 millimeters, and the seat tube link's pretty short as well. So if you wanted to size up and get even more reach out of it, you could do that and still run a full length dropper post. The Trance 2.9 uses Giant's Maestro suspension platform. It uses 2 co-rotating links, so it's pretty soft in the initial part of the travel, levels out all the small bumps, but then it ramps up pretty quickly towards the end so you don't get a really harsh bottom out. Our test bike here is equipped with DVO's Topaz 2 rear shock and then the Sapphire 34 mil fork. Both of these suspension components were developed by DVO with Giant specifically for this bike, and they claim to have gone through over 100 iterations of the rear shock, so that's quite a bit of R&D in making this thing work. For our test here, we have the top of the line Trance Advance Pro 290. It's a carbon frame, and it comes with full X01 drivetrain, DVO suspension, 800 mil True Veda bars. Other nice thing about the spec on this bike is it comes with Minion DHF DHR combo with the tires. It's really cool to see someone spec a more aggressive tire on a trail bike. Our Trance Advance Zero Pro, as it sits, weighs 26.7 pounds and is the lightest bike in our test group. The seat tube angle is a little bit slack, and I found that I have a pretty long inseam, and running that much seat post, I did feel a little bit over the back, and I felt like I sunk into the travel a little bit, but overall it still climbed very, very well.
Yeah, even on that, like the shorter end of the sizing spectrum at 5'7", I have a 27-inch inseam. I felt like I was a little bit back on this bike when I was climbing. That being said, I felt it was like super comfortable and a good reach for me.
Yeah, the bike's really good at maneuvering through turns and getting up and over stuff. The reduced offset fork kind of makes it easy to steer through tight sections of trail, so yeah.
Yeah, I found there's a little bit of motion when we were climbing on this bike. The motion just helped with traction as opposed to making you feel like you weren't climbing efficiently. But I did also think that it was nice to lock out that bike and have that option.
The pedaling platform was really nice when I was on a longer sustained fire road climb or something like that, but run that thing wide open all the time when you're in technical climbing. Descending on the Trance 2.9, this bike really likes to run, it likes to have a good time. It doesn't feel like a 115 mil travel bike in any way. The geometry is super helpful for that.
Yeah, the slack angles, the short chainstay, and that 44 millimeter offset fork really made it feel like it cornered really well.
Yeah, the bike kind of just stays lively in all situations. You can get into higher speed, really chunky sections of trail and kind of find that you're outrunning the bike just a little bit. But as much as it ramps up at the end of its travel, you really don't feel too many harsh bottoms if you have the shock set correctly.
On the really fast descents, the bike really maintained an active suspension and it had really great small bump compliance. And then that being said, even when you brought it into the rougher, more tendery sections of trail, it still was able to maintain its composure.
The way the suspension ramps up is really nice because you don't feel like you're running through every bit of it, but you're getting a whole lot of use out of that 115 millimeters of travel.
And if we even just start with looking at something like the tires, like they're really well thought out spec on this bike.
Yeah, Giant spec'd a Minion DHF DHR combo for every model of this bike the whole way through the line. It's running an EXO 3C. Really nice to see appropriate tires on a trail bike. A lot of times you're running something with not quite enough tread or anything else, but the tires and the rest of the spec of this bike really make it something that you can go and cut loose and get rowdy on trails with.
Yeah, and if we look at the handlebars, we've got an 800 millimeter bar with a 35 clamp. They're carbon. Usually that 800 millimeter bar is not something that you would see on a bike with 115 millimeters of travel.
Giant's TRX wheels are pretty robust. They redid them for this year, and so far so good. I've ridden them on quite a variety of trails so far, and no issues whatsoever.
The best thing about this bike is that it's a really big step forward, a big advancement for Giant. It's also a fun, lively bike. The suspension feels great, the geometry feels great, and it's just really a great all-around mountain bike.
Yeah, I mean, it rides really, really well. It's one of the best shorter travel trail bikes that I have ridden in a long, long time, if ever. The suspension's not totally proven. We did have a small issue with our test bike when it came in with the rear shock. It was quickly resolved. We've been told it was a non-production issue and all of that, but if a consumer was to have an issue with this, they may have a little bit harder trouble getting it serviced. So my one gripe with the component spec is the saddle. I think you had that too as well, right? It's not that comfortable. It's more of a road racing saddle in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the one maybe other con for this bike was just that little bit of suspension bob.
For people with longer legs or a higher saddle height, that may be a much bigger issue than for others that are running a little bit shorter setup. But yeah, that's really one of the biggest and only cons I have with this bike.
So all in all, this bike is for somebody who wants a super capable bike that they're going to be riding in a bunch of different situations, somebody who wants to go on a long day of riding, but wants to make sure that they don't get in trouble on the downhills.
I would say it's one of the better all-around trail bikes that's available right now, and certainly one of the better ones I've ridden.
And there you have it, the Giant Trance Advanced Pro 29er.
Stay tuned for more videos from Pinkbike Field Test.